Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And let me jump into the middle because we have roughly 25 minutes for discussion. And I'd like to ask all of you to share your very short statement about connectivity. We are right in the era of connectivity. Why is connectivity important from your special, particular point of view? Why is connectivity essential to our everyday life, whatever you want to say? Let's do it in this way.
Thank you. So why is the connectivity important? Essential. For me, it's a blood of the humanity right now, of business. It strengthens, empowers, fastens. Yeah.
Well, connectivity is essential for our human life. We are connected as human beings, so that's very important. Technology can help in realizing this connection. Sometimes technology can take over, and human relations and human connections can lose their strengths. But in general, I think it is a human thing as well, as that's what can create value in today's world if we make things connected to each other. And there are various options how we can make things connected to each other.
I fully agree with Zoltan that connectivity is basically in human nature, so we want to be connected. But going a little bit more technical, I think it's a must if we want to digitize industries that are not yet digitized. And of course, we all know examples such as banking, such as mailing things, and we are right now observing transportation, digitization of transportation with an example of Uber, for example. But there are lots of domains and industries that are not yet digitized. And they will definitively create a completely new value chains where new players will pop up and new things will be possible to be done. If we move a little bit backwards, the situation would look like a little bit like the situation with film industry. Years ago, to earn on films, you had to have an expensive camera, a studio where you record all the things. Right now, teenagers or kids even, with the use of their smartphones, are earning on YouTube. So that's an example of digitization of a domain, which is in this case the film, let's say, film industry, a special one. Thanks.
So connectivity, in my view, is a deep and fundamental human need, right? So we all want to be connected, maybe not all the time, but after 30 years, let's say, of internet, we're looking at a new cycle, and we can only assume at this point how important this transformation is going to be. And this is all going to be obviously enabled by connectivity. We at UPC were definitely committed to be part of it. We've been part of it, and we believe we make a big difference in the markets where we're present.
Thank you. I think everything that benefits from a connection will be connected. I mean, connectivity really means better life option for many people all around the world, and can address big challenges from the big world agendas. I mean, if you have connectivity, then you have opportunity to access many different type of applications, many different type of services. I mean, education, healthcare. So it can really help the societies and the economies to improve their competitiveness and connect many people to the world economy. Just think in Africa or even the less developed countries. So connectivity means truly a benefit for the society, for the people, for the different industries, because it will create new business models, new opportunities for everyone. So mobility, broadband, and the cloud will make a tremendous impact for our life. Our life, how we are living our lives, will be very, very different from a couple of years from now than today. And one of the key ingredients is to make sure that we have a very, very high quality connection, and then we will have good access to these new applications. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I think that connectivity is, or needs to be, ubiquitous in general infrastructure, just like roads and the electricity grid. And I think that this is a no-brainer to say that this general infrastructure increases not only productivity, but also the quality of life. So it's always a good idea to support any EU or government initiatives that aim to improve the bandwidth connectivity of households and of corporations. And besides the examples on how it is going to be even more important that we've seen from the IoT presentations, I think it has also been mentioned that coming from a media-related company, I can say that for the millennial generation, the primary way of consuming media is also through the internet. So this is changing our lives as well right now.
Thank you very much. I would like to try to make our picture of future picture of connectivity even more sharper. And you, in your presentations, gave two very exciting aspects. UPC is just entering to the giga world. Right now, we can have hundreds of megabits per second as a commercial product service. The IoT as a very essential part of the future connectivity or future everyday life seems to be used by everyone. And also security seems to be a critical factor to fulfill the promises. And Slawomir cited Bell Labs that a new phase of human existence is will be based on this new connectivity. So I'd like to ask you to answer the following question. What is the main challenge to you, to your company, to your personal activity in these years of transformation? What is the main challenge and what is the main opportunity why you will face to this challenge?
Thank you. So we are watching that and we see that I would compare connectivity with other utilities like electricity, water, etc. So it is no question that it is already in the same industrial category. And but I have concerns as a security representative that okay, we are building pipelines, we're building transmission, we're building speed, interoperability, and everything. But if you think about water and the content of the pipelines, you filter the water, not to get garbage into the households, and not to send out garbage out of the factories. You measure the output of a factory to see if there are emissions, if there is a polluted water, and everything. But we're not doing this really in the internet utility. So there are many questions and many ways and how to do this. There are concerns with the privacy, because once you start filtering internet, you have privacy. You might have a privacy problem. So for me, this is a concern, a question we need to answer. Because I'm deeply convinced we need to filter the internet traffic, like we need to filter the water. But how to do this without any compromises on privacy?
As a company which has a strong tradition and history in providing traditional voice services for people and businesses, that is certainly a challenge for us, how this market will change, as we all see that it's changing. People are less and less using their ordinary telephones. So that's something we have to face with. But the real challenge, I think, is that there are still large number of people, especially here in Hungary, I guess in other countries as well, who are still using the traditional old ways of communication, who are dependent on the traditional old ways of connectivity, who are not willing to switch, who are not open for these kind of changes. And we have to keep up these services. But at the same time, those people who are still using these traditional ways of connecting to each other, they are expecting, as well as all the people, that the prices will go down. So the connectivity, as it is, doesn't pay much, actually. So just to provide connectivity for a company, it is not a sufficient business model. There is no sufficient business model for that. So what we are trying to do is that, as we feel committed to those people, especially living in smaller towns and villages in Hungary, to provide them good service in the way they like to use that service. But at the same time, we are trying to tackle this challenge with trying to find new ways of providing connectivity with some added services. And also to find, like in the IoT field, new fields with new opportunities to provide connectivity. We also see that there's a potential of cooperation, how strangely it might sound, between various communication companies. To somehow help each other and help each other's market to find the best solution for their consumers. So I can imagine that there are ways that mobile companies and other kinds of companies, telecommunication companies, can work together in providing services in new business models. I think these are the challenges we are facing with, and these are also the commitments we also have towards the people we are serving.
Thank you. Well, those people that are using traditional means of communication, maybe they will find them more safer. But on the other hand, well, I'll start with the opportunities that I see, then I'll move to the challenges. So the opportunities that I see are determined by two factors. The first factor is softwarization, if I may say so, of the telecom infrastructure. That means that everything that was, and still quite much is, hacked in hardware or software, but very much related to a given hardware, will be soon written in a very portable software running on commercial off-the-shelf, say, servers or computers. So that's the first observation, that's the first factor. And the second factor is that, well, that one is related with virtualization, of course, of this infrastructure. The second factor is that standards are opening. So, so far, and quite much still, but not long into the future, standards are defining just the important interfaces. And soon we will see that instead of those interfaces, we will see a multitude of APIs, application programming interfaces, defined. That means that the standards are getting open. both factors mean that there is a place and an opportunity for smaller players. So the future infrastructure will be developed by a multitude of smaller players specialized in given network functions rather than by the giants covering the entire value chain. And as such, we will see not a value chain, but a value network of multiple players. And that's a challenge we are addressing, of course, as a small company. And that's an opportunity we see for the entire region. And not without reason, we are here for the Visegrad countries, as we traditionally have a very strong background in mathematics. I mean, we as those Central European countries. And I think it's high time that we should have our own Ericssons and Nokias and other kind of big players there set up. Now, the challenges are related with this, of course, and to me, the challenge is to convince people that they don't have to go to Silicon Valley to design a system and to work on something great. They can still do it here. And also decision makers or the decision makers at the governments that are defining the policies for, let's say, fund consumption and general policies within which the companies are moving. And I think that we need some improvements in this area. Thanks.
We've been traditionally providers of connectivity and entertainment, right? And as well, traditionally in our industry, we sort of controlled the end-to-end ecosystem, meaning that we did our own innovation, and when it came even to things like modems, set-top boxes, we did have some partners, broadcasters, content providers, and so on. But if you look at, again, the whole ecosystem, we had to innovate in the fixed industry especially. We had to innovate ourselves from one end to the other of the whole spectrum of customer experience. So the question that and the main challenge probably is related to, first of all, monetization of this innovation. You hear me? Yeah. So it's monetization of this innovation. We're a private entity at the end of the day, so we need to share, to show actually returns on our investments. And secondly is related, I think the second challenge is related to the future business models, because as I said, we are used to innovate ourselves. And the question is, you know, in the future, where do we want to be? How do we want to partner with, you know, IoT developers, with the apps developers, and can we integrate upstream, downstream in this industry? Should we do that? So these are big questions, because again, at the end of the day, in order to reach that point where we say, you know, IoT is, you know, generating value for the economy, for the society as a whole, we need to invest, and we need to have this cycle we're looking at in relation to innovation, to investment, to monetization, very well aligned with the public policies, and understand the role of the governments in driving this development. So it's both monetization, I said, of the investments and the business models, because fundamentally, I think some of the way we do things today and the setup of today is going to change. There are a lot of questions, for example, to automotive industry, and probably many of us are wondering who's going to own that in the next 10 years, right? Is it going to be the software developers? Is it going to be the traditional manufacturers? It's going to be the network owners who's going to own the automotive industry, and is going to generate actually value out of that.
Thank you. As for a technology company representatives, I can say that the technology will be there. 5G will come, and we are offering a really good and smooth path to our clients and customers to upgrade their networks and to make them 5G enabled and capable. So this is the opportunity for, this is definitely an opportunity for Ericsson, and I can say that we are well advancing and heavily recruiting new R&D engineers. Just in this quarter, we hired some 1,100 new R&D engineers devoted to these projects, and it's happening, and offering, as I mentioned, a smooth path through our new software releases. So definitely that's an opportunity. What I see as a challenge is really the collaboration between the different industries, because every industry has its own challenge. What could be solved by an IT company, by a service provider, very well. But they are not trying to collaborate and cooperate on the way to address these challenges. So I think we need to facilitate collaboration between the different industry players. That's one thing, because that will provide new services, new business opportunities, new business models for the different participants, and also very important that the legal environment is there, because many different approach will be needed in the future, like the self-drive in case of the self-driving cars, in case of sharing data, who will own that data, who will handle the data is coming that are coming from the different players, industries, who will be the trusted organization who will provide certain services for everyone. So collaboration between industries, that's a key challenge for everyone, and a huge opportunity, and I encourage everyone to collaborate, to check what problems they are, what pain points they have, and ask the help of other industries, and especially the operators, to address these challenges. And the other is, as I said, the legal environment for these new services. And so the challenge on policymakers, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that some of the opportunities are quite clear. So I believe that connectivity is going to be used for more things that it's used for now. For example, just what I mentioned previously, the media consumption. We believe that with the new generation is going to be almost purely OTT, so there's a new way of consuming audiovisual content. There are new functionalities related to that, and that will require connectivity. And this is also a challenge in itself, because I don't think that we can believe that the bandwidth need has stopped, or the growth of the bandwidth need has stopped. At least in audiovisual media, you can see that from SD to HD, it's 4 times the data, from HD to 4K, from 4K to 8K. There is also coming the VR movies, there is the 360 movies, there is the movies with several viewpoints. So if you really want to transmit all this huge amount of data, this is going to be a stress for any network developments. One solution, or one interesting thing can be said about the legacy broadcasting technology, which is much more cost efficient for content that is consumed by a huge number of people. So if you have a broadcast network, then you just have to broadcast the information once, and your cost is not dependent on how many people are listening to what you're actually saying. And this is, interestingly, and this is maybe a relevant point here, it's not just relevant for TV, but for IoT, although most of the IoT use cases rely on either upload, so sensors are collecting data and uploading it to a server, or some two-way communication, but there might be some niche use cases where it's enough that you can like remote control or direct or send some information down to your end nodes. And for that, there is a technology. So we have this long-wave radio tower in Hungary, which is not used for long-wave radio anymore. There's no long-wave radio in a classical sense, but it can be used for such purposes. For example, switching on and off the electricity network operators' end nodes in the households so that they can manage the load of the electricity network. And this is actually now serving, I think, more than 500,000 end nodes as such. So this is, you have to do it once, and if it's a remote control, if it doesn't require a backway channel, then it's quite cost efficient. And just maybe one more thing about the security issues. So I fully agree that security is a very, very important aspect. And the paradox with that, I think, is that the more connectivity becomes ubiquitous and invisible in our lives, the less we seem to care about it. So maybe you can have people refresh their Windows or their install a firewall, but we have heard the stories about these DDoS attacks where, like, I don't know, thousands or tens of thousands of baby monitors were just not, the built-in password was not changed. And then that can be used for a really huge cyber attack. So I think that education on this front is very important.
Thank you. And my last question would be about the V4 group, as we are in a Visegrad 4 event, and as I see, all the Visegrad countries want to be in the forefront of this connectivity transition, connectivity revolution. The question is, do we have any comparative advantage? Do we have synergies what could be helpful to be successful in this connectivity revolution? To be in the forefront is always risky. Of course, it promises high gain. So I would like to ask you if you see such kind of advantages, but let me give you two questions. One is a little game of, or estimation of by the end of 2020, so in 3 years, how much IP endpoints, so how much user endpoints will we have per 1 million inhabitants in this region? It's quite easy to say that by 2050, so 30 years from now, we will have 50 billion or something like this. But in 3 years, how much endpoints, IP endpoints or users will we have per 1 million inhabitants? This is one, just a simple question. If you want to answer, of course, it's not obligatory. The second one is, if you believe that we have in this region, in this V4 cooperation, any advantage or chance or opportunity, please share us your ideas.
Thank you. First, let me ask you how many, to give a guess, how many we have today? Do you know?
Yes, I guess is in this region we have as an IP endpoints about more than 90% of coverage. So I would say as an IP endpoint, as a smartphone is an IP endpoint, it's about 1900 per 1 million.
Okay, thank you. So I have to say I have no idea. Let's say it's going to triple. Yeah. And about the V4 collaboration, since there's been a platform established for collaboration and cooperation, And since these markets are not that far or not that advanced as the Western Europe markets, it's always good to have events like this to meet and to establish collaborations to share costs, to gain bigger market strength, to share costs across the country. So I wish there is a more collaboration between everybody, between the providers, that there are shared networks and shared costs, because then we can introduce the technologies faster.
For the first question, I'm not so optimistic. I don't really have a clear estimation in my mind. I would say that it wouldn't double. It certainly will grow, but I think there are still some physical as well as how to say, absorbing difficulties in the region as I see it. Regarding the second question, our company is already working together in the region with some companies in relation to connectivity in a wholesale market, and we are trying to serve our clients with cooperation, with with regional cooperations. So I think, especially in respect to connectivity, there is a great need, and for more parts, for even greater cooperation. Other than that, I also think that there are many similarities in our societies and in our history, of course, and in the way we try to operate and try to find new ways of generate value in our countries. I don't think that the cooperation is as strong as it could be. I think these kind of events would be very useful in the future, maybe with more direct information on who are here and how we can relate to each other and connect to each other. And I think then we can explore much more opportunities so that we can live up to the dream, what Slavomir just said, that from this region, new ideas and new business models could come and conquer the world or Europe at least.
Yeah, exactly. I would rather ask another question, not how many connections we have per capita, because I am working on base station algorithms for beyond 5G, and I don't feel somehow penalized by that, of course. And I'm not using Facebook, so I don't see much of a relation here. I would ask a question, how many global companies are we going to grow here that will compete efficiently with the giants, or that will become giants? And that's the question. And I think that we do have a potential indeed, and somehow we find ourselves in a situation that, well, hey, we have a neighbor here. They are sharing our level of value. They are sharing values. They are sharing the viewpoint. They are sharing, of course, the history. But we are not doing things together. So something has to be done in this area, I think. And well, an event like that is a very good move, of course. And there is definitively a potential. And I would even dare to say that we are in front of a historical opportunity, because the change is very much science-driven, and it will be very much software realizable, and we are good at this. Thanks.
I think we're facing a bit of a paradox in CEE and in V4 countries. Generally speaking, the quality of networks and the speeds are higher than in Western European countries, right? And we do sell, for example, we commercialize higher speeds than we do have available in countries like UK, I don't know, Switzerland, Belgium, and so on. So, but the paradox is that, you know, while we have these developed networks and high speeds in urban areas with high penetration as well, we do have a big gap in rural areas, typically. So there is a bigger gap in between urban and rural in Central Europe than you have in Western Europe. And that's something very important to keep reminding ourselves, because from the regulatory perspective, we have to make sure that we have an environment that encourages still investment in networks. We're not reaching everywhere yet. And you see level of penetration is much lower in rural areas. You still see a gap between Western European and Eastern European countries, even in relation to the use of internet in business. So we do have a bit of a catch-up to do, but we're well positioned actually if again, the environment allows for further investments. So that's a big opportunity looking forward. Now, the second challenge, I'd say, is scale. Because at the end of the day, you need scale to drive investment and innovation. That's at the core of our belief, especially in our industry. And to reflect that, what we did in Liberty, at least, we came together because we're present in all V4 countries, plus in Romania. So we came together as one region in order to drive, to build scale, actually, and to represent, to have a bigger voice in front of, our leadership, if you want, right? So we can drive innovation for Eastern Europe faster in a more meaningful way. And that actually, changed a bit of the rule of the game. So that's important to keep in mind as well. Scale is key for innovation and for investments. And coming together and having the same sort of an agenda always helps.
Thank you. Actually, we have quite concrete data for you, because we have been issuing our mobility report for some 20 years, which is very much monitoring the development of mobile connections, for example, or the mobile traffic, based on some, of course, anonymous examples from 100 live networks from all over the world. So we have a pretty good view on how much connections will we have in 3 years or in 5 years. What I can say, I know the global data, unfortunately. I don't have the CEE data in mind. But what I can say that there will be some 29 billion connected devices by the end of, so roughly 30 billion connected devices by end of 2020. And when it comes to the adoption of 5G, we understood from the measurements that there will be 550 million 5G subscriptions by the end of 2022. So it will be the most rapidly deployed technology or adopted technology of all time. I mean, it took 8 years for 3G to reach 2 billion subscribers, only 5 years to 4G, and it will be much shorter in case of 5G. But I'm not counting IoT. This is 5G subscriptions alone. So this technology will definitely come, and there will be more and more connections. More and more electronic devices will be connected to networks. And what I'd like to also highlight that this is now a very big opportunity for Hungary to, especially for the policymakers and for the government, to involve the technology companies and facilitate and also somehow motivate for investing in R&Ds, local R&Ds, for example, and investing and collaborate, make a place and somehow motivate them to collaborate and come up with new ideas and trials here in Hungary, using, for example, the Zalaegerszeg test track. I mean, many industry players can come together and define use cases. And I think you mentioned, Gábor, that there is a risk for the first mover that idea will not work or not happen finally. But I think if that idea will work, then it will be beneficial for the country and for all companies that are somehow attached to that trial and that use case development. And not just the big companies, but the small companies can also contribute and also be involved. And typically these sensor networks and real-time analytics will bring to life many small companies offering new services for the big players for the benefit of the society. Because data will be generated everywhere, from the walls, from all electronic devices, and understanding the data and having the right correlation between the different sources from the sources that will really make the difference and will generate new business models, new business offering for many small companies. And big companies as well. So I see a huge potential, and we should facilitate the local technology companies, local collaborations in attracting international trials to Hungary, and involve the universities as much as possible to make these new applications live in Hungary first.
Okay, thank you. So Roland has fortunately answered the exact figures for the first question, so I don't have to do it anymore. Maybe I can just add one more thing to that. It's very different when you try to estimate something from a strategic point of view, when you believe in it. Okay, we all believe in IoT, and we believe that it's going to be huge, millions, billions of endpoints worldwide, but it's different when you're actually a company who has to invest in it. And in that case, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, it's not so trivial to show what exactly will be those niche use cases that will yield those billions of endpoints right now. So it's always like a little bit of a dualistic question. On regional cooperation, we have very good experiences with that, actually, in Antanungaria. We are fortunate that our activity is focused almost exclusively on Hungary, so we don't have to compete with our peer companies in other countries. So we regularly exchange ideas and have discussions with companies. Like we had very nice discussions with České radiokomunikace and also visited Zagreb, Ljubljana. So we have, I can just say that I can encourage anybody to try to do similar things, because there is always something that you can tell the other party, and there is always something that the other party can tell you. On the success of any regional network developed long wave transmitter, it actually has a range that covers, I think, the whole of Slovakia and about half of the Czech Republic. So if any of the V4 countries are interested in radio ripple control, then we are really happy to discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are completely out of time. So thank you for the presentation and to being a panelist here. I think we really enjoyed a very valuable thought, and I hope this regional cooperation will somehow benefit all of you. I wish all the best to you. Thank you.